Dr. Thomas Long, a professor of theology at Princeton, and he has since retired. But when his daughter was in high school, he took her and her 5 friends to New York City. And as they were walking down 42nd Street by Times Square, they saw this man with a beard and looked awfully scraggly with a little microphone system preaching. And he kept saying, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth." He's preaching this over and over again. And Thomas Long was sitting there watching these people. You know, he for a period of time, he was even taught homiletics. So he was marveled at this guy. And you know, most people just ignored him. Just ignored him. And you know, he's saying to himself, you know, you look at this man and but he said he's given a pretty important message. And he said, you know, it was probably the same way that St. John the Baptist was. People thought he was crazy, but he was given an important message. He's telling people to prepare. And when he uses that word prepare in those days, they would have known exactly what that word meant. Prepare in those days means to push the obstacles out of the way. When a king was coming, they would send soldiers well in advance to prepare the roads. Get all the debris out, the debris that's lying over the roads. Make sure the ditches are all filled in, any gaps, level as much as they could. Why? So that chariot can smoothly go through and travel from one town to the next, right? That was the purpose of those who prepare. And that's what he's telling us to do. Remove the obstacles. Remove the obstacles. What kind of obstacles do we have? There was a young mother that had a 6-year-old boy called Billy. Billy was in the Christmas pageant. He was one of the wise men. And for 3 days they would do this play, and she sat there and watched this, and it was also really, really cute. He had this nice little outfit, this beard. On the last night, the one who ran the pageant said to Billy, you know, Billy, you should leave your beard at home. So he goes home and he's crying to his mom and his parents, and he said, you know, my teacher wants me to leave the beard at home, and his mom's wondering why this young boy is making such a big deal out of wearing this beard. And finally, after going back and forth, she said, you know, Mom, you know those songs we sing in the pageant? And she said, yeah. She said, I never learned them. She said, with the beard on, I could just move my mouth and nobody knew. But you know, I often think during this time of year, you know, we have a lot on our minds, and our minds are all over the place. Probably here now. And we have this nice little beard on that we cover our mouth, so we just can't really see. We just go through the motions, right? We just go through the motions. And Jesus is saying, you know, now this is pretty important. This is pretty important. Praying in the morning is pretty important. Going to confession is pretty important. See, because they're all tied in to those obstacles. They help remove. There was Pastor Harnish, his name was. He retired, moved down to northern Florida to a lakeside house that had been vacant for at least a year. And it was really a mess, especially the outside. The stuff had overgrown and things like that. So when they moved in, it took them about 6 months to get the inside somewhat livable, which they did. And then they also had a dock. They didn't have a boat, but they had this dock that was there in the lakeshore. It was completely overgrown by this large bush. So finally, they got enough gumption to go down there and cut this bush down. And when they did, they took some, you know, they sawed it down and got the bush back. But they realized this bush had this incredible root system that was sticking above the ground and kind of right beside the dock. And they thought to themselves, you know, they're just going to leave it alone. You know, they've cut the main part down. They'll just leave the root alone, because you'd have to take an axe to it, just like here in the gospel. The axe lies at the root. And they said they didn't feel like going through that much work. 2 months later, what happened? Yeah, the bush is same place it was, a little less now, right by the dock. So they cut it back this time, and they took an axe to it. And you know, when I was reading this article, I'm thinking to myself, you know, this is just like confession. A lot of us have the same stuff: anger, jealousy, impatience, impurity, self-absorption. You know, we have these things inside us, and we don't feel like dealing with them, so we just let it go. We don't want to take an axe to it, do we? It's too much work. But meanwhile, this stuff continues to grow within us, doesn't it? It doesn't stop. That bush isn't going to stop. These weaknesses aren't going to stop unless we take an axe. And that's what St. John the Baptist is saying. Look, we need to repair. Take an axe. That's what confession is like, my friends. Taking an axe to this stuff. We don't get all the root, but we keep nibbling it down. And finally, at one point in our lives, where we keep knocking away at this root, we are going to get the root. We are going to get the root. It's amazing how sin works, my friends. Curiosity. We never even talk about curiosity. But you know, here we hear somebody says, oh, I'm curious about what they're saying about this person. So you listen to it and you're like, I didn't need to hear that. I didn't need to hear that. Or we're sitting there looking at our neighbors bring something into their house. Just curious what they're bringing into their house. And meanwhile, we're like, I want one of those. I need one of those. Or we're looking at an article that we shouldn't be looking at. I'm just curious to see what it says. And meanwhile, this stuff stays in our brain. Or pictures or videos that we shouldn't be looking at. I'm just curious. What is it doing? Meanwhile, this poison of impure stuff comes into our place. Started as a simple act of curiosity. Oh, I just want to take a look at this video. Yeah. And then this video comes into our brain. And then we got this poison within us. Curiosity. It's a nasty thing, my friends. And it seems so subtle and so innocent. It's the first sin. Oh, I just want to see with that apple. What happens with that apple? We saw what happened with the apple. We saw what happened. It's a good thing to monitor, my friends. And see, this is what happens. We need to reflect on this stuff during this season for our benefit, so that we're become better people, better versions of ourselves. And so today, my friends, may we listen and heed the word of St. John the Baptist. Prepare the way of the Lord. God bless you.